dollar falls apart. I mean, right now, 80% of the global currency transactions involve the U.S. dollar and one half of it. So it's however it goes, I do imagine you'll see you'd have to have not only a revamped currency in the United States, but a revamped global currency system. I don't see a one world currency coming out of this.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you that.
I mean, whatever happens, and again, there are all sorts of possibilities as to what happens here politically, and
sure.
I mean, I'm not into forecasting that. And again, I mean, I can tell you we've got a problem, and it's coming to a head, and it's going to come to a head within a certain period of time. How it moves beyond that depends on a wide variety of factors. But a new currency system, I would be willing to wager, will have some backing in gold in order to help sell it to the public.
And my last question to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time that you're taking to make things perfectly clear. How much do you think the loss of confidence in the U.S. dollar, in this currency, is going to have its weight in spiraling and accelerating the flight from the dollar from inside the United States and also from outside the United States? In other words, how much weight does the now loss of confidence have of people fleeing the currency?
I think very significant. I mean, I can't put a number on it, but that's the primary. The loss of confidence in the dollar now reflects loss of confidence in the U.S. government, the U.S. Fiscal balances. If you look at major factors that drive a currency, the fundamentals. Relative economic strength is a big factor. We're still in recession. It's getting worse. Interest rates, we're as low as we can go, and Mr. Bernanke would like to make them lower if he could. You see others trying to control their systems are actually raising rates, including the Chinese. So the higher rate tends to make a currency stronger. Relative fiscal discipline. Well, we're at the bottom of the barrel on that. Relative trade balance. We've got the world's largest trade deficit, and aside from recent gyrations tied to big swings in oil prices.
Can you just explain that last part of what you said? When you say we have the world's largest trade deficit, what does that mean?
If we didn't have the trade deficit, we'd be manufacturing roughly $700 billion more of goods in the United States. That would have us. If we were in trade balance, the difference here is about $700 billion.
How is trade measured?
How is trade measured?
Yep. How is the trade measured?
Exports.
Okay.
We're importing a lot more than we export, and we're importing things now that we used to make. We no longer have the manufacturing base that we had. That's why you have the structural problem with individual income. This is due to the very poor trade policies and so-called free trade elements. I mean, this is, again, where I have an argument with academics. Great theories, but they don't relate to the real world. Theory behind free trade is that you have two countries that are at full employment. One's very efficient making a certain product. The other is very efficient making another product. But they don't trade with each other. You open up trade between them. What happens is you get more the countries that are most efficient in what they do will make more of those products. You end up with greater production overall, greater wealth. Everyone's happier. That's the rationale used in free trade, or justifying the so-called free trade policy.
What does the free trade? I understand what trade means, but I don't get what the
free
trade...
Free trade means it's unencumbered by government regulation, tariffs, and such, which is, we don't have free trade. But the problem with the theory is that it requires that all the parties be at full employment. We aren't at full employment, haven't been in decades, and neither of any of our major trading partners. So that when you get say the NAFTA deal, North Atlantic Free Trade Association with Canada and Mexico, that type of a circumstance, a country with the low labor has the trade shifted to it. So all of a sudden we have a big trade deficit with Mexico that we didn't have before. A lot of jobs shifting the border. With the trade deficit, we're transferring wealth outside the United States. The big deficit in this type of a circumstance basically is a way of redistributing global wealth away from the richer countries to the big rich country, in this case the United States, to the rest of the world. And that's what we're suffering from an economic standpoint. And that's why incomes are not staying ahead of inflation. That's why unemployment is persistently high.
Don't you think globalization is one of the roots of this outsourcing and the trade deficit?
Yes. Well, it certainly is exacerbated it. And when you have a trade deficit, you owe more to the rest of the world than is owed to you, and you're making it up with your currency. The general effect is that your currency gets weaker. Basic supply and demand. So, but it's going down the list of the factors that affect relative currency strength. The other big factor is political stability, and good predictor of how the dollar is doing or will do is the popularity or the approval rating of the U.S. president. That's not doing too well at the moment. So all those factors together would normally give you a down dollar, and given the big shake-up that we had in confidence from this non-deal in Washington, was really very powerful in its impact and destroyed significant confidence, and is going to lead to much weaker dollar in the not-too-distant future.
Are you doing a lot of traveling these days? Are you here a lot in the US?
I don't do that much traveling. I do some.
Talk about your site and some of the things that we can get once we subscribe to your newsletter.
Well, the shadowstats.com has a lot of material on it for the public, including in the right-hand column of the homepage, the latest edition of the hyperinflation report. The earlier editions are all available. We have archives and everything that's been written on the site. You want to see what's been talked about before. But what's in the hyperinflation report, although it's dated April, is still current in terms of what's happening. Things have unfortunately been unfolding along the lines of what we've been looking for. We also have on the site articles on the quality of the different key statistics, show graphs of the alternate measures, and which includes estimates of unemployment, the GDP, the Consumer Price Index. I also publish an estimate of the broadest money supply measure, M3, which the Fed no longer publishes. On a subscription basis, what you get is a weekly commentary, which keeps you up to speed with what's happening week after week with the data and any unusual developments in the markets, as well as the hard data behind the graphs, the alternate measures.
I really want to thank you for joining us and for taking your time to lay out the true conditions that we're living in and the attributes that we need to pay attention to protect ourselves and to be able to have a more prospering future, and also some things that are ahead that are difficult to face. I'm sure it's not easy to be you.
As I started out when we started getting into the more negative aspects of this year,
right?
I've only been physically assaulted once for my views, and that was by a nice lady at a board of directors meeting at a bank in Maine. She was in tears and picked up a jelly donut and threw it at me. She hit me in my chest, a pretty good arm. And the poor woman was in tears. She said, "Oh, you have this bad news, What's the good news here?" And the bank chairman stepped in and he said, "The good news is you know what's going to happen. You can protect yourself." And if there were a way I could see the government working its way out of the circumstance, I'd be yelling it from the rooftops. I just don't see any way of this practically working out. So I'm talking more generally about how people can move to protect themselves and ride out the storm.